The chapel garden waits in the blue hour before dawn, when the stones are cool, the paths are dark with dew, and the first light has not yet chosen a color. A small wooden door stands open beneath an arched wall. Beyond it, rosemary and wet earth breathe softly, while a fountain gives one quiet sound, then another, into the stillness. The Slow Room. Episode 15, The Chapel Garden at Dawn. Settle into the quiet of this place. Nothing is being asked of you here. You do not have to arrive at the right feeling, follow every detail, or make the night useful. The chapel garden is already complete in its own slow way. The path is laid, the pews are still, the herbs are resting, and dawn is approaching without needing to be hurried. Imagine yourself at the garden entrance, standing beneath a simple stone arch. The arch is old but sound, made from pale blocks softened by weather. A small lantern hangs from an iron hook above the door, its light low and amber. It does not brighten the whole garden. It only makes the threshold clear, giving you one gentle place to look. The wooden door beside the arch has been left open a little. Its surface is painted a muted green, though the paint has thinned along the edges and shows the warm brown beneath. The hinges are quiet. The handle is smooth from many hands. You can enter whenever you like, and there is no need to decide how far you will go. The air outside the arch carries the cool scent of stone after night. It holds the faint sweetness of damp grass, the sharp green note of rosemary, and something clean from the fountain. Far beyond the garden walls, the world is beginning to lighten, but here the hour remains slow. The garden keeps its own small weather. You take one unhurried step through the entrance. The path beneath you is made of narrow stone pieces, set close together with pale sand between them. Dew has darkened the stones in irregular shapes. Each one is different, yet the path feels even and dependable. There is no need to watch your feet closely. The way is already prepared. On either side of the path, low beds gather near the chapel wall. Rosemary rises in soft, woody clusters, its narrow leaves holding tiny beads of water. A few pale herbs lie close to the soil, their leaves broad and quiet. Nothing in the beds is dramatic. The plants simply keep their place, rooted in the cool earth. The fountain is somewhere ahead, just beyond a low square of clipped greenery. You hear it before you see it. Water touches the basin with a small rounded sound, then settles into a lower bowl. The sound is not loud enough to fill the garden. It gives the silence a center, a place where quiet can gather and return. You continue along the path at the pace of a thought becoming softer. The chapel wall remains on your left, warm gray in the lantern light. To your right, the garden opens toward a courtyard enclosed by low hedges. The tops of the hedges are dark against the sky, and the sky is just beginning to separate from the night. There is no schedule in this garden. Dawn will come whether you notice each change or not. The lantern will fade as the sky brightens. The fountain will continue. The rosemary will hold its dew for a while, then release it. You are allowed to be here without monitoring anything, without preparing for the next moment. At the end of the first path, you find a small wooden bench set beneath the chapel window. The bench is made of dark boards, smoothed by weather and use. Its back is low. Its seat is wide enough to receive you without asking you to arrange yourself. You may sit, or simply notice that it is waiting in the right place. The chapel window above the bench is narrow and tall, framed in simple stone. Its glass is clear near the middle and slightly cloudy near the edges. Inside, you can see only a soft amber glow from a candle or lamp. The light is not bright. It suggests a room that has been kept ready for quiet. You sit on the bench in imagination. The wood is cool through your clothing, though not uncomfortable. The garden rises around you in small, patient details: damp path, rosemary, low hedge, pale wall, dark roofline, lantern, fountain. Each detail can remain exactly where it is. You do not need to hold all of them at once. The bench has a shallow curve where people have sat over the years. It does not feel worn out. It feels familiar with rest. Along one edge, the wood has a fine line of silver where the weather has reached it. The line catches the lantern light, then disappears when you look away. Small changes can be quiet and complete. From the bench, the fountain becomes easier to hear. Water drops into the upper bowl, spreads in a thin circle, and slips over the rim. The lower basin holds the sound briefly before a narrow channel carries the water toward the garden beds. Nothing splashes sharply. The fountain is more like a continuing whisper than a performance. The channel beside the path is lined with small rounded stones. Moss has gathered in the shaded spaces, giving the edges a deep green color. The water moves slowly enough that it seems almost still when you glance at it. Then a small brightness passes along the surface, and you remember that it is always making its way onward. The chapel stands behind you and beside you, its walls quiet and solid. It is small, only a few rooms gathered under one roof, with a narrow bell tower and a wooden porch. The building has no need to appear grand. Its proportions are gentle. Its roof slopes low over the garden, as though offering protection from the dark. You turn toward the chapel door. It is set a few steps away, beneath a shallow porch supported by two square posts. The porch boards are dry and slightly lighter than the door. A woven mat rests before the threshold. It has been brushed clean, though a few tiny leaves remain at the edge. There is a sense of welcome in the open garden, but it is a quiet welcome. Nothing calls out. Nothing insists that you enter the chapel or remain outside. The door, path, bench, fountain, and beds all offer themselves without pressure. You can let the garden be a place where permission is more noticeable than instruction. The first hint of dawn appears above the far wall. It is not yet a line of light, only a thinning of darkness where the sky meets the tops of the trees beyond the garden. The lantern remains the warmest color. The stone remains the clearest shape. The fountain continues to mark the hour in water. You stand from the bench slowly and walk toward the porch. The path curves around the fountain square, giving you a closer view of the basin. It is carved from one block of pale stone, with a shallow lip worn smooth. Water gathers in the middle before falling through a small opening into the bowl below. The fountain's surface reflects the lantern as a broken oval. The reflection trembles when a drop arrives, then becomes still again. You do not need to steady it. Water knows how to receive disturbance and return to quiet. The garden does not make a lesson of this. It simply allows the fountain to be what it is. Near the basin, a small rosemary bed follows the curve of the stone. The leaves are narrow and deep green, their scent released gently by the cool air. You can imagine brushing one sprig with your fingers, but you do not need to touch it. The scent is already present, light enough to remain comforting. Beside the rosemary are several low plants with rounded leaves and tiny silver edges. Their names do not matter. They have been planted in careful rows, with enough space between them for air and rain. The soil is dark and soft around their stems. The bed has the calm appearance of something tended over time. The porch steps are made of broad stone. Their corners are worn slightly round. You place one foot on the first step, then another, and pause beneath the roof. From here, the garden is framed by the porch posts. The opening makes it look like a quiet painting that is slowly receiving more light. The chapel door is heavier than it first appeared. It is made from vertical boards joined by dark crosspieces, with a simple latch at shoulder height. You rest your hand on the latch without lifting it. The metal is cool. Behind the door is the calm interior, and outside is the garden. Both are safe places to remain. When the door opens, the chapel receives you with a soft change in air. It smells of beeswax, dry wood, old stone, and the faint clean scent of linen. The fountain becomes quieter through the wall, though it is still there. A narrow aisle leads between two rows of wooden pews toward a simple altar. The chapel interior is small enough to feel close, and high enough to let the silence rise. Wooden beams cross the ceiling. Their undersides are dark with age, while their edges catch the light from a few candles. The walls are whitewashed stone, uneven in the way hand-finished walls are uneven, with soft changes from one patch to another. You stand just inside the door and let your eyes adjust. The candles are placed in low holders along the side walls. Their flames are steady. A small lamp burns near the altar, making the front of the room slightly brighter. The light does not reach the rear pews fully. Shadow remains gentle and useful. The floor is made of broad wooden planks. A runner lies along the aisle, faded red and blue, with a pattern nearly softened away. The runner is straight enough. Its edges are held flat. You can walk along it without thinking about each step, because the chapel has already made the way easy. The first pew near the door has a smooth backrest and a narrow ledge beneath it. The ledge is empty except for a folded cloth. The cloth is pale and neatly squared. It does not need to be opened or used. It simply rests there, a small sign that care can be quiet and finished. You move to the first pew and sit. The wood is firm, the back upright, the seat slightly curved. You may let the posture be supported by the bench. There is no need to sit perfectly. The chapel does not inspect how you rest. It holds you as you are, in the ordinary way a strong piece of furniture can hold a body. From the pew, the aisle stretches ahead in a narrow line of softened color. At the far end, the altar table is covered with white linen. A simple wooden cross stands behind it, plain and unadorned. 2 candles burn on either side. Their light reaches the cloth and makes a warm edge along the table. The altar is not a place of demand tonight. It is simply the quietest arrangement in the room: table, linen, wood, candlelight, stone wall. The objects are at rest. The cloth lies without a crease that needs smoothing. The candles burn without needing to be watched. The room does not ask you to interpret anything. Near the front wall, a small wooden stand holds a bowl of clear water. The surface is still. A sprig of rosemary rests beside the bowl, its stem dark and its leaves fine. The garden and chapel meet in this small arrangement. Outside, the rosemary grows in earth. Inside, one sprig rests beside water and candlelight. You can let the scent of beeswax become part of the room. It is warm, faintly sweet, and clean. It mingles with the dry scent of the pews and the cooler smell of stone. Nothing is strong enough to crowd the air. Each scent remains in its place, just as the fountain, lantern, bench, and path remain in theirs. The chapel has a quiet acoustics of its own. A small shift of wood is softened by the walls. The fountain reaches you as a distant pulse. Somewhere high above, the roof holds the sound of the early air. If there were a voice, it would travel gently here, but no voice is needed. Silence is already enough. You look toward the side window. It is made of several small panes, each one holding a different shade of darkness. Through them, the garden appears in pieces: one hedge, a portion of the fountain, the edge of the rosemary bed, and the pale line of the path. The chapel does not separate you from the garden. It gives you another way to see it. The panes are slightly uneven, so the lantern outside bends at the edges. A warm line becomes a small blur, then returns to shape. The glass has no story you need to uncover. Its gentle irregularity makes the garden seem nearer, as though the window has learned to soften whatever passes through it. You may rest your hands loosely in your lap. You do not have to make them still. If a finger moves, it moves. If the body shifts, it shifts. The pew remains beneath you. The floor remains beneath the pew. The chapel remains within the garden. Rest can include small movements without losing its quiet. The candle nearest the side wall leans briefly, then straightens. Its flame makes a small gold reflection on the polished wood of the pew ahead. The reflection is not fixed. It trembles, grows narrow, and widens again. You can notice it without following it. The light is allowed to keep changing in its own small way. Outside, the sky has become a softer blue. The garden wall is no longer only a dark shape. Its upper stones have begun to separate from one another. The lantern remains visible, but its purpose is less necessary. It has done enough for the night. It may fade without being extinguished. You hear the fountain through the chapel wall. The sound arrives after a little distance, rounded by stone. Drop, basin, channel. Drop, basin, channel. It is a pattern without a requirement to count. The water creates a gentle room inside the room, and you can rest in that smaller sound. The pew in front of you has a small notch near one end, perhaps made by time, perhaps by an ordinary tool. The notch is smooth enough not to catch on clothing. It is just one small irregularity among many, a knot in the wood, a faint line in the floor, a variation in the whitewash. These details make the chapel feel lived in without making it busy. The room has been touched by hands, cleaned, repaired, lit, and allowed to age. Nothing has been made perfectly new. Care has been given to what is here, and the marks of time have been allowed to remain. You let the aisle, the altar, and the side windows become less distinct. The mind does not need to keep every edge sharp. The room can soften as sleep approaches. The wooden beams can become dark lines. The candles can become small warm points. The white linen can become a calm field of light. There is a door at the far side of the chapel leading back into the garden. It is narrow and painted the same muted green as the entrance door. A strip of dawn light rests beneath it. The line is faint, but it is there. Morning has begun somewhere beyond the wall, quietly and without announcement. You do not need to get up yet. You can remain in the pew while the light gathers. The chapel can hold this pause between night and morning. The candles are still lit. The fountain is still moving. The garden is still wet with dew. The hour has not asked you to choose one side of it. The air near the side window is slightly cooler. You imagine it touching your face, carrying the scent of rosemary from outside. The scent has changed as the sky lightens, becoming clearer and more green. It does not wake you. It simply makes the garden feel nearer. The front wall holds a small shelf with 3 plain books. Their covers are dark, their pages pale at the edges. They remain closed. There is no reading to complete. The books can keep their words quietly contained while the room keeps its silence. A closed book can be as restful as an empty table. Beside the books is a shallow wooden box holding small pieces of beeswax and a clean wick. The box is open, but nothing is needed from it. The materials wait in their simple shapes. Wax, wood, cotton, stone, linen. The chapel has a way of making ordinary things feel sufficient. You notice the smell of the wax more clearly now. It is warm and gentle, close to honey without being sweet in a heavy way. It belongs to the candle flames, to the hands that made or tended them, and to the quiet work of keeping a small room welcoming. There is a second bench along the wall near the door to the garden. It is narrower than the pews and covered with a simple woven cushion. The cushion is faded blue, with a thin line of cream along one edge. It looks comfortable enough for a few quiet minutes, and no more needs to be said about it. You rise and walk toward the garden door. The aisle runner is soft beneath each step. The candles remain steady at your sides. Behind you, the pews recede into shadow. Ahead, the line of dawn beneath the door grows slightly wider, not because it is being forced open, but because morning is naturally arriving. At the door, you place your hand on the latch. The metal has warmed a little from the room. You lift it easily and open the door. Cool air enters, carrying water, herbs, and pale sky. The chapel and garden exchange their air, and the boundary between them becomes gentle. The garden looks different now. The hedges are green rather than black. The path stones are pale gray, with small dark patches where dew remains. The fountain basin has a quiet sheen. The rosemary leaves show their fine shapes. Dawn has not filled the garden, but it has made everything more possible to see. You step through the side door onto a narrow cloister path. The path runs beneath a covered walkway along the chapel wall. Square columns separate the garden from the roofed edge. Their bases are dark with damp. Between them, the garden appears and disappears as you move, like a series of calm framed views. The cloister roof is made of old timber and shallow clay tiles. A few drops of dew fall from the edge when the air shifts. They land on the path with almost no sound. Above the roof, the sky has become a very pale blue, carrying a little silver near the horizon. You follow the cloister path slowly. Each column gives the garden another shape. First the fountain is centered. Then the rosemary bed. Then the chapel door. Then the low wall beyond the garden. There is no need to decide which view is best. Each one can appear, remain for a breath, and pass. The path is sheltered here, and the air feels stiller. The covered walkway holds the scent of wood and stone. Along the wall, small niches contain simple pots with herbs. Their leaves are quiet in the early air. The pots are different sizes, but they are arranged with enough space for each plant to breathe. One pot holds thyme, its tiny leaves clustered close to the soil. Another holds a taller green herb with a clean, almost citrus scent. A third is newly planted, the soil dark and undisturbed. You do not need to identify anything. The garden is not a test of names. It is a place of shapes, scents, and patient growth. The wall beside the pots is cool beneath the roof. Its stones have a faint pearly color in the dawn. Here and there, a thin line of moss follows the mortar. The moss is not spreading wildly. It rests in its small spaces, making the old wall feel even more settled. At the end of the cloister, the covered path opens into a larger garden square. In the center stands a low circular bed filled with pale flowers. Their heads are closed or only beginning to open. A few hold drops of dew along their petals. The bed is surrounded by a ring of flat stones that catch the first light. You stand at the edge of the circular bed. The flowers do not need to open for you. Some mornings begin with closed petals. Some forms of beauty are quiet, folded, and waiting without strain. The garden allows the flowers to meet the day at their own pace. Beyond the flower bed is a second path leading to the herb garden. It is narrower than the main path, edged with small wooden stakes and pale gravel. A simple sign rests at the beginning, painted with a few faded letters. You do not need to read it. The path is understandable without explanation. You walk toward the herb beds. The gravel is dry beneath the cloister roof and damp where it opens to the sky. Your footsteps remain quiet. The garden seems to absorb them, taking each small sound into the leaves, soil, stone, and early air. The herb beds are arranged in long rectangles. Rosemary, sage, mint, thyme, and other green plants grow in calm lines. Each bed has a low border made from reclaimed wood, gray from weather. The soil between the plants is dark, loose, and clean. There are no weeds that need removing tonight. Everything is already tended. The scent of mint rises near one corner, cool and clear. It mingles with the rosemary and the damp earth. The scents do not compete. They pass gently through one another, creating the feeling of a kitchen remembered rather than a kitchen in use. You kneel in imagination beside the nearest bed, though you do not have to touch the ground. The soil is soft enough to receive a hand. Small pieces of bark lie along the border. A fallen leaf rests near a stem. The garden does not require every surface to be empty. A little natural disorder belongs here. The wooden border under your hand is rough in one place and smooth in another. It has been planed enough to be safe, but not so much that it loses its character. The grain runs in long faded lines. A small nail holds one corner together, its head darkened by weather. Beyond the herb beds, a narrow stone wall separates this garden from an outer courtyard. The wall is waist high and topped with flat stones. You can rest your hands there and look over. On the other side is a simple gravel court with a covered wood pile, a wash basin, and a second gate leading into the wider grounds. The outer courtyard is empty and peaceful. The wood pile is stacked evenly beneath a small roof. Each piece has a different shape, but the pile holds together in a patient rectangle. The wash basin is dry except for a thin ring of water at the bottom. The gate is closed, its iron latch hanging still. You do not need to open the gate. Beyond it, the wider grounds can remain unseen. The chapel garden is enough. Sometimes rest comes from staying within a small boundary, from knowing that there is more beyond the wall but not needing to enter it tonight. The sky above the garden is now a pale gray blue. The tops of the distant trees have a thin silver edge. Light rests on the chapel roof, then slips down the wall in a slow change. The lantern near the entrance looks dimmer. Its glass still holds a warm core, but the dawn is becoming the larger light. The fountain continues with its small rhythm. In daylight, you can see how the water enters the upper bowl through a narrow opening hidden beneath the stone rim. It gathers, circles, and falls. The design is simple enough that the movement feels inevitable. Water finds the lower basin, then leaves by the channel. You follow the channel away from the fountain. It runs between the herb beds, shallow and clear, carrying a thin line of morning brightness. The channel passes under a small stone bridge no wider than your hand. The bridge is decorative, but it is also sturdy. Even small crossings can be made with care. The water beneath the little bridge moves slowly. A few grains of sand rest along the bottom. The current shifts them by almost invisible degrees. There is no need to hurry the process. The garden has enough time for water to move sand, light to reach stone, and plants to rise one quiet inch at a time. You cross the small bridge and enter the oldest part of the garden. Here the path curves around a single broad tree trunk, its bark dark and deeply textured. The branches reach over the wall and hold a few leaves that tremble when the morning air moves. The trunk stands calmly at the center of the curve. The tree's roots have lifted two path stones slightly, but the stones remain safe and familiar. Someone has placed a little border around the roots rather than cutting them away. The path bends with the tree. The garden has learned that a way can remain useful while honoring what grows beside it. At the base of the trunk, a circle of low ground cover holds dew. The drops are bright now, catching the first true light. They sit on leaves, in small hollows, and along the edge of the bark. Each one is temporary, but nothing about its temporary nature makes it less complete. You pause beside the tree and let the garden become broad around you. Chapel wall behind, herb beds to one side, fountain beyond, low wall ahead, tree beneath your hand. The first sounds of the wider morning remain far away. Inside this boundary, the garden is still mostly quiet. The breeze moves through the branches once, lightly. A few leaves turn their pale undersides toward the sky. Then the branches settle again. There is no message in the movement. It is simply air passing through leaves, and then continuing onward. You return along the curved path toward the fountain. The chapel windows are brighter now. Behind one pane, the small candles still burn, though their glow is less distinct. The room inside is ready to become daylight, and the garden outside is already receiving it. The porch at the main entrance is visible beyond the fountain. The wooden bench remains beneath the window. A thin line of moisture shines along its seat. The bench has not changed in any important way. It is still a place where the body can be supported, where one can pause without explanation. You sit on the bench again. The garden now has more color: green leaves, gray stones, muted brown wood, pale wall, blue sky, and the warm remnant of lantern light. The colors are gentle because dawn is gentle. Nothing arrives all at once. The garden lets one shade become another. From the bench, the fountain seems brighter than before. The upper bowl has a faint sheen. The lower basin holds the reflection of the sky, broken each time water falls. The channel carries the brightness away, making a thin path through the garden. Light moves with water, though neither has anywhere urgent to go. The chapel door remains open. Through it, you can see the first pew, the aisle runner, and the edge of the altar cloth. The interior is no longer dark, only softly dim. It feels connected to the garden by the open door, by the scents of herbs, by the air moving between stone walls. You might imagine returning inside, and you do so slowly. The porch boards give a quiet sound beneath your feet. The mat remains by the threshold. You step over it and enter the chapel, where the beeswax scent has become lighter in the cool morning air. The candles near the altar are small now. Their flames continue, but daylight has taken their place as the room's main illumination. You do not need to put them out. They can finish burning at their own pace, and the chapel can hold both candlelight and dawn without conflict. You walk past the first pew toward the front. The white linen on the altar is almost luminous. The wooden cross behind it is clear against the pale wall. The room feels very still, but not closed. The new light has opened it gently, revealing the simple materials that were always there. At the front, you notice a narrow side door behind the altar. It leads to a small sacristy, a room where cloths, candles, and garden tools are kept. The door is closed. A brass hook holds a folded green apron. Everything is orderly enough that no attention is needed. The little sacristy can remain closed. Its shelves can hold their candles, jars, brushes, and folded cloths. Its wooden cabinet can keep its quiet contents. There are rooms in every peaceful place that do not need to be entered. Knowing they are there adds depth without adding work. You turn back toward the chapel entrance. The pews line the room in pairs, each one a little different in grain and color. The aisle is straight. The door is open. Beyond it, the fountain gives its familiar sound. The way back to the garden is plain and easy. Before leaving, you rest for a moment in the last pew. This one is near the rear wall, where the chapel feels widest. Above you, the beams hold the roof. Behind you, the door allows dawn to enter. In front, the altar rests in quiet light. There is room here for the whole night to become morning. The rear wall has a small circular window set high above the pew. It catches a pale patch of sky. The glass is clear enough to show a soft brightness, though not enough to show any detail beyond the wall. A small circle of morning is sufficient. The room does not need a wide view. You can let your attention rest on that circle. It does not move quickly. The sky brightens by such small degrees that no single moment needs to be noticed. The garden below is changing in the same way. Light gathers, shadows loosen, and the chapel becomes familiar in a new hour. The fountain sounds slightly different from inside now, perhaps because the air is lighter, perhaps because you have learned its distance. The sound is still soft, but it carries a little farther through the open door. Drop, basin, channel. The garden remains near even while you sit inside. You leave the rear pew and walk toward the door. The wood underfoot feels warmer than before. The whitewashed stones have taken on a faint silver color. Along the side wall, the candle flames have grown small and calm. No one needs to adjust them. Morning knows how to arrive without assistance. Outside, the garden receives you again. The main path is now clear enough to see its whole curve from entrance to fountain and chapel porch. The rosemary bed has released some of its dew. The leaves look darker and more fragrant. The air is cool, but the cold is thinning. You follow the path toward the garden's wooden pews. There are 3 pews arranged beneath a long covered arcade on the far side, facing the flower bed. They are simpler than the chapel pews, with open backs and thick legs. The wood is pale from weather and smooth where people have sat. The first garden pew faces the fountain. The second faces the herb beds. The third faces the chapel itself. Each gives a different view, but none demands a choice. You sit on the middle one, where the garden seems to gather evenly around you, water ahead, herbs nearby, chapel behind. The seat is dry beneath the covered arcade. A narrow beam above carries the faint scent of raindamp wood. The roof keeps a few drops at its edge, where they gather and fall one at a time. The sound is almost lost beneath the fountain, but it gives the air another soft texture. The herb beds are especially clear from here. You can see the rosemary's branching stems, the rounded leaves of the lower plants, the small labels tucked into the soil, and the wooden borders that hold each bed. The garden is not elaborate. Its beauty comes from being cared for in ordinary, repeated ways. Beyond the beds, the low wall is warmed by dawn. Its flat capstones are pale along the top and dark beneath. A small patch of lichen marks one corner, colored gray and green. It does not need to be removed. It belongs to the wall's long conversation with weather. The gate in the outer courtyard remains closed. Its surface is painted the same muted green as the chapel doors, though the paint is thinner near the bottom. A small brass latch catches the light. The gate can remain closed while the garden begins the day. The world beyond it can wait without pressure. You listen for the wider grounds. There may be distant sounds, but they are too far away to require attention. The chapel garden keeps the nearest sounds: fountain, drops from the roof, a soft shift in leaves, the small settling of wood. These are enough to fill the morning's first minutes. The sky has reached a quiet pearl color near the horizon. Higher up, it remains blue-gray. The garden wall is fully visible now. The lantern by the entrance is still lit, but its flame is nearly hidden by the surrounding brightness. It has not failed. It has simply completed its night work. The fountain basin holds a clearer reflection of the sky. The water's surface brightens, darkens, and brightens again as drops enter. The lower channel looks like a silver thread between the beds. You can follow it with your eyes for a little while, then let it become part of the whole. One sprig of rosemary near the path leans outward, heavy with moisture. Its tip almost touches the stone border. It is not broken. It rests in a gentle curve, supported by its own stem and the neighboring leaves. Not every leaning thing needs to be straightened. Some shapes are already comfortable. The garden pew supports your back. Your feet rest on the stone path or the ground just beside it. Your hands are quiet. The chapel wall holds the shade behind you, and the open garden extends before you. There is no requirement to hold a particular pose. Rest is allowed to find its own shape. You look toward the flowers in the circular bed. A few petals have opened farther. They are pale against the green, almost white in the first light. The rest remain closed. The garden does not demand that every flower meet the morning at the same speed. The thought of speed can soften here. The fountain is not fast. The light is not fast. The herbs are not fast. The chapel is not fast. The garden has been built around patient things, and patience makes a wide enough space for you to rest without comparing one moment to another. You can imagine the caretaker's quiet routines, though you do not need to see a person. A gate is checked, a path is swept, a candle is trimmed, a plant is watered, a cushion is placed beneath the arcade. The work is gentle when it is done, and when it is finished, the garden returns to silence. Nothing in that imagined routine is happening now. The path is already swept. The candles are already burning. The herbs are already watered by dew. The pew is already beneath you. You have arrived after the tasks, in the hour when care can become invisible and the cared-for place can simply rest. The chapel bell tower rises above the roof, but no bell sounds. Its small opening shows a dark shape against the lightening sky. The tower does not need to announce dawn. The garden knows the hour through color, moisture, and air. Silence can be a complete beginning. You rise from the garden pew and walk once more toward the fountain. The path is familiar now. Stone, rosemary, hedge, basin, channel, chapel wall. The sequence comes easily, but you do not need to remember it. Each place is close enough to be found without effort. At the fountain, you place your hand on the stone rim. It is cool and damp. The surface has been polished by water and weather, with a few shallow marks where grit has passed over it. The stone feels steady beneath your palm, neither warm nor cold for long. Water gathers near your hand and slips away. The movement is continuous but not urgent. It does not wait for you, and it does not leave you behind. It simply moves beside you for a little while, making the garden sound like a place where time has become gentle. You follow the channel to the edge of the herb beds. A small wooden cover rests over the place where the water passes beneath the path. The cover is made of 2 boards, darkened by moisture. It fits neatly, strong enough to be crossed and plain enough to be forgotten. Beyond the cover, the channel widens into a shallow stone trough near the far wall. The water rests there briefly before disappearing into the earth. The trough is lined with smooth pebbles. Sunlight has not reached this corner yet, so the water remains a cool blue-gray. The far wall has a narrow doorway leading back toward the chapel porch. It is framed by climbing herbs trained along a wooden trellis. Their stems make a quiet pattern against the stone. The doorway is open, and through it you can see the porch, the bench, and the green front door. You walk through the doorway and stand at the center of the garden. From here, every main part of the place is visible. Chapel, fountain, cloister, herb beds, flower bed, wooden pews, low wall, gate. The garden is not large, but it has enough corners for the mind to become unhurried. The first direct light touches the top of the chapel roof. It moves across the tiles in a thin band, then reaches the stone arch at the entrance. The lantern's glow is now almost invisible. Its glass reflects the sky instead of the flame. You walk beneath the arch and turn back toward the garden. The entrance frames the fountain and the chapel door. The rosemary bed is nearest, dark and fragrant. Behind it, the flower bed holds its pale shapes. The fountain continues at the center, linking each part with water and sound. The stone arch feels cool above you. Its inner curve has a few fine lines where rain has traveled downward. The lines are delicate and irregular, like quiet handwriting made by weather. They do not weaken the arch. They show that the arch has been present through many mornings. You step outside the arch only as far as the small outer path. Beyond the garden wall, the wider world is beginning to wake, but the sounds remain distant. The chapel garden stays behind you, not hidden, simply held within its walls. You can return to it in imagination whenever the path is remembered. The outer path is made of packed earth, softer than the chapel garden stones. A few flat rocks mark its edge. Grass grows along both sides, silvered by dew. The path bends around the wall and disappears behind a stand of trees, but you do not need to follow it. You turn back toward the entrance. The garden is brighter now, but it has not lost its quiet. The fountain remains the same. The rosemary remains the same. The chapel remains still. Dawn has not changed the place so much as revealed what the night was already holding. You return through the arch and sit on the bench beneath the chapel window. The wood is beginning to warm where the sun reaches it. The garden wall reflects a faint gold. A few drops of dew loosen from the rosemary and fall into the soil. Everything is moving a little, but nothing is in a hurry. The chapel window above you is now filled with pale morning. The lamp inside has been extinguished or has simply become invisible in the daylight. The glass holds a reflection of the garden. For a moment, the window seems to contain both the inner room and the outer path. You can rest your head against the bench if that feels natural in the imagined place. The wall behind you is solid. The window above is quiet. The fountain is ahead. The path remains open. No one is waiting for a response, and no moment needs to be made meaningful before you are allowed to rest. The garden has offered many places to sit: chapel pew, porch bench, cloister bench, garden pew, stone edge. Each one has a different shape, but all of them carry the same quiet message. There is room to pause. There is room to be supported. There is room to remain exactly as you are. The fountain gives a lower sound as the morning air warms. Perhaps the water level has settled. Perhaps your attention has softened. Either way, the sound remains comforting. It does not need to be constant in volume to be steady in character. The scent of rosemary is strongest near the bench. It carries a clean, woody note, mixed with damp stone and the faint sweetness of the flowers. The air is cool against the skin, but the coolness is no longer the deep coolness of night. It is the fresh edge of a new day. The garden is ready for morning, but you do not have to become ready for anything. Morning can belong to the garden. You may remain in the softer space before obligations, before decisions, before movement. The chapel door is open, the pews are still, and the fountain keeps its slow rhythm. You look once more toward the herb beds. The plants stand in their rows, each at a different height. Some stems are upright, some curved, some spreading gently across the soil. The garden does not make them uniform. It gives them room to grow in their own forms. The flower bed holds a few more open petals now. Their centers are pale gold in the light. The closed flowers remain just as welcome as the open ones. Nothing is late here. Nothing has failed to arrive. The garden is a place where becoming can be quiet and incomplete. The outer gate catches the sun. Its brass latch glows briefly. The gate remains closed, keeping the garden's small boundary intact. Beyond it, the world can continue. Inside it, the morning can remain gentle for a little longer. The cloister columns cast long narrow shadows across the path. As the sun rises, the shadows will shorten, but for now they make a simple pattern of light and shade. You can let your eyes rest on one patch of brightness, then another. There is no need to follow the whole pattern. The chapel roof gives a small settling sound as it warms. The wooden porch responds with another faint creak. These sounds are not interruptions. They are the building becoming aware of the day in its own slow way. Stone, wood, water, and plants all meet the morning without hurry. You imagine the chapel interior one last time. The whitewashed walls, the low candle holders, the altar linen, the 3 closed books, the bowl of water, the rosemary sprig, the rows of pews, and the open door. Everything remains simple. Everything remains enough. You imagine the garden one last time as a whole. Arch, lantern, path, fountain, herb beds, flower bed, tree, cloister, pews, wall, gate. Each part has a place. Nothing needs to be moved into a better arrangement. The garden is already holding the morning in a calm and balanced way. Now let the details grow softer. The fountain may become only water. The rosemary may become only scent. The chapel may become only a warm, quiet shape. The pew may become only support. The dawn may become only a gradual light behind closed eyes. You are not required to keep listening closely. The garden can continue without your attention. Water can move through the fountain. Light can reach the stones. Herbs can release their scent. The chapel can hold its quiet. You can drift nearer to sleep while the place remains gently present. The bench beneath the window is broad and steady. The wall behind it is warm now where the sunlight touches the stone. The air remains cool in the shade. Warmth and coolness can exist together, each in its own place, neither needing to replace the other. The fountain continues in the middle distance. Drop, basin, channel. A pause in the sound. Then water again. The pattern has no final note. It can accompany you for as long as needed, and then fade naturally when sleep takes more of your attention. The garden path lies open, but you do not need to walk it. The chapel door is open, but you do not need to enter. The gate is closed, but you do not need to open it. Every direction can remain available without becoming an instruction. The first morning light rests across the wooden bench. It touches the grain and reveals lines that were hidden in the dark. The wood looks ordinary, strong, and kind. It has held many quiet pauses, and it can hold this one too. You may let your body become heavier against whatever supports you now. The imagined bench, the real bed, the pillow, the mattress, the quiet room around you. Support does not require effort. The earth holds the garden. The garden holds the chapel. The bed holds you. The chapel garden remains beyond the soft edge of thought. Rosemary in damp soil. Water in the fountain. Pale flowers opening slowly. Wooden pews beneath the arcade. Stone arch beneath the brightening sky. Nothing is missing from the scene, and nothing needs to be added. You can rest in the knowledge that dawn has arrived without asking you to greet it. The garden has received the light on your behalf. The chapel has opened its door. The fountain has kept its rhythm. The morning is present, and you are allowed to remain quiet within it. The last candle inside the chapel is small and nearly finished. Its light is no longer necessary, but it is still gentle. When it goes out, the room will not become empty. Daylight will continue the work of showing the pews, altar, linen, and stone walls. The lantern at the entrance is also quiet now. Its glass holds a reflection of the pale sky. The night light has done what it needed to do, and the garden does not hold on to it. Some forms of care are meant to disappear when the light changes. The rosemary sprig beside the bowl inside the chapel rests where it was placed. Outside, the living plants continue in their beds. The two are connected by scent, memory, and simple green color. One rests indoors. Many rest outdoors. Both are part of the same quiet morning. You hear the fountain one final time as a clear, soft sound. Water touches stone. The sound widens, becomes distant, and settles into the background. The garden does not vanish. It simply moves farther away, becoming a peaceful place you no longer need to visit step by step. The path stones, the bench, the chapel door, the herb beds, and the pale flowers can remain in the morning light. Let them be held by the garden itself. Let the garden be held by the quiet earth. Let the quiet earth be part of the wide, undemanding world. You can release the scene now, slowly or all at once. There is no correct way. The chapel garden will remain complete without being watched. Dawn will continue to brighten the walls. Water will continue to move through the fountain. The pews will remain still, ready to support another quiet moment. Rest a little longer in the feeling of the open door, the cool stone, the clean herb scent, and the low sound of water. Nothing is urgent. Nothing is incomplete in a troubling way. The night has softened. The morning has arrived. You may simply rest. Good night. This has been the Slow Room.